I was about 18 when my friends invited me over for my first sleepover in ages. The last time I had a sleepover was before I moved to another town with old friends I never got to see again. So, I was pretty excited for it. That is, until I arrived at my friend's house and saw what they had in mind. The house we were sleeping over in belonged to a friend of a friend who I'd never really hung out with before. I didn't know that she was a horror buff, with a bedroom full of death metal posters and creepy occult stuff that I had never seen outside of horror movies. I was a bit hesitant of her at first, but she turned out to be a pretty chill girl, despite the overwhelming goth aesthetic. I played a few rounds of Smash Bros with her and two other mutual friends who were also sleeping over. After that, we watched a bunch of horror movies from his extensive Blu-ray collection. I'm not much of a horror movie girl myself, but I went along with it, since everyone else was. It was pretty funny to see some of my usually tough friends freak out at the movie too, even if I was freaking out alongside them too. When the last movie finished, the goth friend suggested that we do something, in his own words, more interesting. I asked what he meant, and a grin spread across his face. She lifted her mattress and pulled out an honest-to-God Ouija board. One of my friends asked her why on earth he had a Ouija board under her bed, and she told us that her parents typically didn't care about what he did, so long as she wasn't breaking the law. But she still felt like a full-blown portal to the spiritual world was kind of pushing it. There was a mischievous glint in her eyes when she said that we should give it a try, now that it was almost midnight, which was apparently a time where the veil between our world and the spiritual world was thinnest, alongside 3:33 a.m. I wasn't too keen on the idea myself. It's not that I actually believed in that kind of stuff, more like I didn't want to risk messing with it on the off chance that it's actually real. But all my other friends seemed to be open to the idea, so I gave in to peer pressure and played along. Looking back, I could tell that none of them, aside from the goth friend, wanted to do it either, but were all ironically too scared of appearing scared to turn it down. We gathered around the Ouija board with the goth friend sitting right above the board. We each placed a single finger on the planchette. Almost immediately, the planchette started moving, though whether it was actually a spirit or one of my friends goofing around, I couldn't tell. We asked a bunch of questions, or rather, our goth friend did, while the rest of us were played along while too scared to ask any questions of our own. She asked if there was anyone in the room with us, and the planchette moved to yes. Then she asked if the spirit meant us any harm, to which it answered with no. I could tell that the tension in the room lessened significantly at that answer. If we were going to be haunted by a spirit, it might as well be a friendly one. I stayed cautious though. Living people lied all the time, and I didn't trust a dead one much either. This went on for a while. We could never get any complex answers from it. Most of the time, it'd move around the board so much that whatever came out was a garbled mess of letters that couldn't even count as a word salad. But simple yes or no answers were always answered quickly. At this point, I was suspecting that someone in the group was messing with us. It could only manipulate the planchette without being noticed enough to put it to yes or no. Just as we were about to say goodbye, an hour late, the planchette moved on its own and slid out from all our fingers. We began freaking out, but the goth friend simply stared at the planchette. I followed her gaze and realized that the planchette wasn't over any particular letter, not even a yes or no. I couldn't tell what it was trying to say. Was it just trying to scare us? Then, I looked to where in the room the planchette was, pointing with its heart-shaped tip. My blood ran cold when I saw that it was pointing at the window. And outside on the streets was a dark figure in a hoodie, standing in the middle of the road, holding a huge knife in his hand. The goth friend noticed as well, and quickly called the police. They arrived in minutes, and the man was arrested. They found pictures of the house on his phone, alongside pictures of the goth friend walking to school. He'd been stalking her for the past month at least, and that night was the night he'd planned to strike and do God knows what with her. If it wasn't for the spirit with us that night, we might have all become spirits ourselves.